can't even remember the words. It's crazy. I'll find it later and I'll send it to you about my ding ding dong. Okay, so now we're gonna hit up
Zack Snyder's Justice League. Yeah.
Well, let's just start talking about it, and I'll start it wherever it works.
Sure. So, how much of this did you follow? Are you a big movie news follower?
I'm a minor movie news follower.
Well, so
give me the short version.
The short version of the show is okay. You and I were working together at a job a few years ago, and this movie was in development then, and I was pretty excited about it because I've liked these. I'm a Superman nut. And I do like this version of Superman, so I was following the show pretty good. And actually, you and I were working together when Batman v Superman came out also, and I had been following the development of this show. Batman v Superman hadn't been super well received by audiences. It was a fairly decent box office hit, but a lot of people had a big problem with the kind of tone. It was dour. It was kind of dark, and it wasn't the picturesque smiling heroes that everyone wanted to see in the first place. So this one here, I kind of was following the development of it in the movie news sites that I would always go to, and then all of a sudden you started to hear they were kind of pushing kind of a tone on the movie websites where Zack Snyder and his wife Deborah, who always worked together, they were kind of talking about how they were going deliberately for it not to be like that he envisioned like kind of a trilogy where Superman starts out bright and then he has kind of like this dark movie in the middle. They were going to kind of bring it back to more like the version of the character that everyone likes, but he had to go through some stuff in order to get there. And I kind of thought that was a great idea. I was on board with that. And they kind of were promising in the interviews and stuff like that as the movie kind of was in development that they were going to have a little bit lighter of a tone. It was going to be a little bit more hopeful, a little bit more spliced with humor and everything like that. And there were rumors of how long the runtime was going to be, as is always the thing when a movie is coming out. And then I think it was in the movie, I think Zack Snyder movies usually come out in March. There's always like a Snyder slot ever since, I guess, Dawn of the Dead was a big box office hit. And all of a sudden, kind of like this movie was set to come out or whatever, and it got announced that there was a tragedy with his family and that he and his wife couldn't finish the movie. They were stepping away from it. However, it was in good hands, and he came out and said that they were bringing on the man behind the first two Avengers movies, Joss Whedon, to kind of finish things up. So lo and behold, the movie did not come out in March of that year. It came out in November of 2017. And when everyone kind of sat down to watch it in the theater, it was a hard cut at 2 hours. Most of his movies run well over the 2-hour mark. And it was just so much different from all the movies that we've seen of this director in the past, Zack Snyder, that everyone kind of had an idea that it wasn't really his movie. So the movement kind of started up to kind of to restore what he had done, because there was stuff that would trickle out along the way, that he'd had all these storyboards by Jim Lee, and that he had this planned with Darkseid, and he was going to have all these characters. And as things kind of trickled out, the promise of the movie that everyone was supposed to have seen became kind of like this overshadowing thing of what we actually did see. And it sounded great on paper. It sounded wonderful. So a whole bunch of other things happened. I'm not giving you the short version at all. This is really crazy. A whole bunch of other things happened. The studio head for Warner Brothers the same person who made these decisions is no longer there. They have a new studio head. Warner Brothers has been bought out by a parent company, I guess AT&T. And as far as I know, I think this version of the film was kind of like just the fact that this exists had nothing really to do with Warner Brothers at all, and more to do with AT&T going, we're going to put that out there and you're going to like it. So they gave him the money to do this, and they put it on HBO Max, and the rest is history. So along the way, with anything that starts on the internet, there is good things that come with it, and there are bad things. There was a bunch of people who acted like dicks. There was a whole bunch of people who did some really nice stuff. And one of the nice things that they did was they raised a whole lot of money for a suicide awareness program in the United States. And that's a big part of what got this movie made, I think, and finished. And I don't know, man, as someone who occasionally puts out a shitty piece of art every once in a while, I have a deep-seated appreciation whenever I get to see something that I know someone has done exactly the way they wanted it to, whether it's good or bad or otherwise. I just have a really big appreciation for that. If you're going to do something, do it the way you want. And if it's good, people will like it. If it's not, people will not like it. They won't watch it. They won't read it. They won't buy it.
Yeah. That's, I think, the core of art, is that it has to be not by committee. Art cannot be by committee. And that's where things went south when he had to step down. Too many people got in there and said, well, we need to do this. We need to do that. And it just spiraled on them downward, in a downward spiral.
It's bad. And there's lasting effects of what happened after he left the movie. I don't think a whole lot of the actors were super happy with how things played out in the end.
Yeah.
It was really obvious watching the two different versions of the movie that certain characters got pretty much removed. This movie, had it come out just the way it was supposed to, it probably would have been a career maker for Ray Fisher, who played Cyborg. Instead, he's fighting a battle on the internet right now against a whole myriad of allegations and bad feelings, and it's rough. Like, it's rough to watch. I catch news of it from time to time, and oh man, it's just quite a story behind a movie. Now, before we get into what we think, I just wanted to talk a little bit about, there's precedence for this happening before with other movies. This is the grandest scale I think I've ever seen. A couple movies that I've seen this happen with, coincidentally, another one was a Superman movie. Superman 2 kind of had the same thing happen to it.
The original Superman 2?
Yeah, the original Superman 2. So this is a funny story too, and it's along similar lines. So they hired Richard Donner to do the first Superman movie, and the two guys who now I'm remembering this from stuff that I've seen and read over the years, but there were two guys who got the movies made, Alexander and Ilya Salkind, and they didn't want to have Richard Donner do the movie at all. He was going to direct this movie. So however it all got done, these guys brokered a deal with Marlon Brando or whatever, and he was very expensive. I think he was the highest paid actor for that movie at the time. So they made the first Superman movie, and they made Superman 1 and Superman 2 back to back. They were shooting Superman 2 as Superman 1 was hitting the theater with Richard Donner. And as soon as Superman 1 was a hit, they turfed Richard Donner and they brought in Richard Lester, who directed A Hard Day's Night, the Beatles movie. And they really wanted to go for that funnier, jokier tone that he had, right? Instead of the more serious Richard Donner stuff. And they booted Marlon Brando. So Richard Donner had already shot all this stuff with Marlon Brando, and they brought in the lady who played, oh geez, it's terrible that I don't remember her name. She was also really good, Sarah York, to play his mother. And they didn't have to pay her as much money because she wasn't Marlon Brando. And then they turned out this movie that had all these weird things, like the big cellophane S off his chest and all that stuff. So lo and behold, wouldn't you know, that rumors existed that for years that there was this other cut of the movie out there that Richard Donner had kind of planned and that he was filming, and they butchered it all up. And they restored it as best they could in 2006 with footage from both movies and some extra shots of Marlon Brando that they had laying around from when they shot the second movie. So it is also, I wouldn't say it makes it a better movie. It kind of does in a way. It, you know, you'd have to see it and decide for yourself. There's a couple things that were going to happen in Superman 2 that wound up happening in Superman 1 that kind of got recycled for that cut, but it's actually a pretty good show. Have you seen any alternate cuts of movies that made them better?
You know, I watched for instance, the Blade Runner director's cut, and then I watched but years after I watched the first one. I can't really tell you that I appreciate usually the director's cut. I don't appreciate for some reason, because I usually see it second. So the theatrical one is the one that I have in my head, right?
Yeah.
and that has emotions and memories and stuff stuck to it. So whether or not it's good or not quite often gets determined by which one I see first.
Hmm.
In this case, with this Justice League movie, I found the first one boring and dumb, and I found this newer version interesting and had a story to it. The first one I could barely even pay attention through for some reason. It just it was put together in a way that just didn't encourage me to. I suffered through it just because it was free. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It was like a chore.
Yeah, there were just too many things I think that when you saw the first one that was they just didn't really make a whole lot of sense. And there's still a couple things that I thought were this doesn't fix everything for me. No, you know what? It kind of does.
Well, nothing has to be perfect. It just has to fit
No,
together.
it does it did it fit together way more. I remember having a huge thing with like we're going to spoil the shit out of this. You know, it's a movie that came out in 2017, so we're going to spoil it. If you haven't seen it, go see it or find a way to watch it. It's fun. It's a good time. But one of the problems that I had with the first cut is when they were bringing Superman back to life and they had him in the Kryptonian uterus fluid or whatever it
Yeah,
is.
the life
And
fluid.
yeah, and they were dropping the box down into the fluid. And then they also had to have that really like crazy playground esque caveat where Flash had to touch the box at just the perfectly right time
Yeah,
in order for all of it to happen, which I thought was
and
it's
they
kind of
still did
nuts.
that.
Well, they still did that, but I don't think that he had to touch the box at the perfectly right time. He just had to give it enough charge to get it going. There wasn't that time limit on the whole thing.
No, it actually bounced off his chest and was hovering above him when he hit it.
Yeah. But
Real spoiler alert there.
just like nitpicky stuff. But I'll tell you the things that I really did like is even in the 2017 version of it, I really liked the cyborg character. And I kind of thought that his kind of time with his father and stuff like that, there was a good story to that. And there was a character that I thought they needed to flesh out more. And they finally had the time to just breathe with that character and explore kind of his conscience, his morality, his relationships with his mother, his father, why he is who he is. And I think they really pulled it off in a way that really had that character and the actor, Ray Fisher, kind of shine through the story. I wound up liking him even more. I liked him already, but I liked him even more in this version of the movie. Also, the
Mhm.
Flash, I thought he got a little bit more time to shine.
Yeah, for sure with the Flash. I mean, I still don't agree with the pick of character, but I like him better now.
Oh,
He
for the
just doesn't.
casting, you mean?
He just doesn't do it for me, and that's probably because I've watched too much Flash on TV. He just doesn't seem like a Barry Allen to me.
No, well, personality wise, a lot of people have said, and I have a feeling too that he's a little bit more of the Wally West Flash.
Yeah, well, I could accept that, but there again, we get into that I have hard time dealing with the fact that I read a lot of Teen Titan comics. So now we're mixing up our storylines, and there doesn't seem to be any point in doing that, you know?
No,
You
yeah.
have perfectly good storylines, and you're like, and we're going to use none of that for no reason at all. They just did that because now we have Cyborg that doesn't even know any of the Teen Titans. Now we have Deathstrike showing up all of a sudden. Is that his name? Deathstrike?
Deathstroke, yep.
Deathstroke. And spoiler alert. And he's not after the Teen Titans. And I don't know, just on and on. That part of it is annoying to me. And I just have to deal with the fact that they're going to just throw all those stories away. But for no reason, because they're perfectly good.
Well, that's kind of the thing that we've had in all the superhero movies leading up to this is I don't think any one of them has gotten like the storylines in the comics perfectly right. The Dark Knight movies they borrowed and took from the stories that they thought would work. The Killing Joke they took from what's the one where they have an earthquake in Gotham City? No Man's Land. They
Yeah.
borrowed from that, and it was you got little bits of them, and it was okay. Even the Marvel movies, they kind of jumbled it up in a certain fashion because of out of necessity, I suppose. But they did the same thing with those, where Spider-Man comes at a certain time, and you don't get the Uncle Ben story because we've seen it so many times before, and people would be disgusted if we have to watch it again. So they just throw this guy in there all of a sudden, and we just don't have
Yeah.
to see him go through all the stuff that we know.
The only difference is throwing away the Teen Titans is just like throwing away the X-Men. There's a lot of stuff that happened there. It was a long
Oh,
running series.
Oh, I agree. But you know, the Justice League is the big front runner, and I think
Mhm.
they were looking for characters to kind of put in there that'd have a resonation with people, and
And
Cyborg was one of them. So,
Hawkman just doesn't do it anymore, eh?
well, he's coming. He's going to be in Black Adam. So, but yeah, I don't know. I just I was pleasantly surprised. Usually, this is my birthday movie this year, so I made all of my kids and my wife sit down and watch this 4 hour and 2 minute movie. I don't think any of them have ever watched a movie that was over 3 hours before.
They weren't in on the final cut of the Lord of the Rings.
We all watched the theatrical versions of Lord of the Rings, and I wound up watching the longer versions by myself. Yeah, they weren't into that. They don't really like watching movies more than once, but everyone watched this movie, and I'll tell you that everyone was pretty happy watching this movie. They liked it. They liked it a lot more than they liked the other one. So
Hmm.
I don't know. That was just good. It kind of feels like to me like a little bit of pun intended justice has been restored to this movie,
Well, I
and
would say so. I'm
yeah.
I am more of a Marvel guy. However, I've, read a lot of Superman comics, etc., and I feel happy about this one. I feel good about where it left me. And the other one I was like just disgusted. I was almost sad that I watched it, the previous version. So for me it made a huge difference. Okay, so we'll do our rating. 8.5 out of 8.5, how many?
Out of 8.5, oh, 7.
7? Okay. I would say probably 6.9 out of
Oh yeah,
8.5.
that's pretty good. That's pretty good. We're even Stevens on this one just about. So here, funny story. I'm going to tell you a funny story. My parents have not seen any of these movies.
Mhm.
So I told them about this one and I was like, well, for my birthday, because we can't all be together this year. So I said, well, you guys should just watch. I'm going to watch this movie. And then they were like, well, we'll watch it too. And I was like, well, there are other ones that I was like, you're going to jump into the story right at the end. And they were like, well, how many are there? And I was like, well, you probably have to, my mom said to me, she goes, well, I don't want to watch some other movie before I watch this one. Can't I just watch this one? And I said, well, sure, I guess you can. And I gave them the Coles Notes version of what happened to get them up to speed on the beginning. And they were okay with that. So they watched this movie and they liked it so much that as soon as this movie was over, my dad found Batman v Superman and they watched that movie too.
Hmm.
And then the next day I was texting with them and I said, did you guys like that one? They were like, yeah, we did. And I was like, did
Hmm.
you know there are three of them? And they said, no, we didn't know there are three of them. So they watched Man of Steel too. So they watched all these movies in reverse order. And I think that's kind of hilarious.
It
But
is kind
yeah,
of funny.
my youngest did wind up falling asleep. So I'm going to have to watch the last hour of this weekend or something like that. But I'm more than happy to watch this movie again. The crazy thing is I think it's doing really good numbers too.
Yeah, so they've decided already, certain parts of the company supposedly have decided that they're not going to continue with this version of that universe, but I think it's a little early for them to make that decision.
I think
And
they
I think
made
they're going to
it.
they might outrage some fans again if they make that decision, because what are they going to do? Start the whole thing over again? Like, that would, we can only do that so many times before we all throw up our hands and walk away.
Well, they are. Like I don't know if you saw the trailer for the new Batman movie, but it's not there's no Ben Affleck in that.
I know.
And it looks great. And then I just recently saw that they've got plans to do a new Superman movie with J.J. Abrams, and they've hired a writer, the guy who he was writing for Captain America comics for a while. So they've got some talent booked there, and if I guess now that I've seen this, I'm sad that we're not going to get to see more of this, because I think the story of where they're going and where they wanted to go with this was kind of a cool place, and it was interesting. It would have been something that kind of we've never really seen before, which is I think something that's unique about this one is it wasn't formulaic. It wasn't paint by numbers. It was a little bit dirty and it had its own thing to do, and it did it right. And I think that's a good thing for it. And where they would have taken it, I think would have been more of an interesting place. They had a couple more movies planned for this. I think there was a 5 or 4 Justice League, 3 Justice League movies kind of in the arc,
Mhm.
but I don't think that we're going to get to see them unless AT&T steps in, which is possible. So in this weird world that we live in, anything is possible.
Well, they
But
might look at the results of this and they might change their minds, is what I'm suspecting might happen.
Yeah, like from what I've read, I kind of saw some streaming numbers today, and man, here I am. I'm going to gauge success by box office, but it's on par. It's doing pretty good enough business that it's close to the Wonder Woman 1984, and I think it actually beat Falcon and the Winter Soldier
Hmm.
for streaming numbers.
I still
So
haven't seen that Wonder Woman movie.
you're not
And
missing
apparently,
much,
that's not what everybody says, but I don't know.
really.
I'm waiting until it comes out for free instead of buying it at this point, right?
Yeah, well, when you watch it and then you let me know if you want some of the drugs that everyone else is taking, because that movie was a turd.
uh, does the special lady music play every time she does an action shot? Because my wife said halfway through the Justice League, could we just stop with the frickin' lady music every time she leaps?
Well, I get that. Like, here's the I think that she actually had everyone had their kind of theme song when they're doing something cool. Like Superman has that boom boom,
Yeah.
and Batman's got whatever the fuck they were playing with him, and Flash has got his thing. But I think hers was so much more distinct than everyone else's that it stood out more.
Hmm. It didn't
And
bother me. I didn't even notice it until my wife pointed it out.
no, I didn't. And I like that kind of music all the time. Like I'll
Hmm.
just throw on some Enya every once in a
Oh
while and
yeah,
just hear some yodeling. I
some
like that stuff.
crazy lady music, as my wife would call it.
But that's just me. You're gonna have to apologize to my wife on my behalf because I wholly disagree, and I'll do it in person next time we can all get together. But no, there's one more thing I got to say about this. Listen, folks, if you're listening to this and you're saying that you won't watch this movie because you like Marvel stuff, or if you're saying that you like this movie and you're going to go out there and you're going to shit on the Marvel stuff, give your head a shake because all this stuff is cool. It's a little bit different in how it works, but if you like superheroes, you like superheroes. And the DC superheroes are just as cool as the Marvel superheroes. You might like one better than the other. I certainly do. I'm a bit of a DC guy. But if that means you can't appreciate something else that's cool when you see it, don't live in that headspace. Just get out of that. Just be a good guy. Just be a good person. Just learn to like shit. Yeah.
Both universes have, an incredibly rich guy that builds a suit
Yeah. Well, they all
and
have
does,
their parallels,
yeah.
right? I mean, if you even look at this one here, you look at the archetypes in the story. You've got your goody goody guy with your Captain America Superman. You've got your guy who gets the team all together, which is Iron Man, and you've got even another sort of Iron Man with Cyborg. You've got your Thor guy with Aquaman. He's much the same character. There's a lot of
Hmm.
parallels here, right?
Yeah.
It,
Batman,
e-
Batman and Iron Man are the same rich jerk. They both have suits.
yeah, and you can Wikipedia Thanos, and you'll find a very hearty mention of Darkseid.
Hmm.
So flattery is or how does the saying go? Imitation is this most sincere form of flattery.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of these properties have kind of borrowed back and forth from each other. And I don't know, we're all rich. We've got two pretty rich comic book universes going here, and one doesn't necessarily have to be better than the other one.
No,
They both have their cool things going. So
no, you can have pancakes on Monday and toast on Tuesday. Doesn't
that's
matter.
right.
They both hold
Yeah.
jam.
What a world we live in. We get like an epic Avengers movie times however many of those they made, and we get this one too. I'm a pretty happy superhero fan right now. So, but that's being that. I'm sad that there aren't going to be any more so far, but I'm really happy that this exists. And to all the people who kind of made it happen and were working on this movie, I can't imagine how nice it must feel to see the thing that you actually made come to life again out of nothing. So, happy guy.
Yeah, and it's art. It is now more the way it was meant to be.
That's right. And who can say that that's a bad thing?
Yeah, you can't show up at the art gallery and just naysay everything about what the artist did.
Well, I think the Mona Lisa would have looked better with a blue gown on.
Then you better go paint one.
I mean, I suppose, yeah, that's it. That's exactly it.
If you don't like it, make something better.
No, this is kind of like the I don't know. There are so many instances of this where, yeah, I don't know. I just feel lucky to have these movies. Like if you would have told me when I was 14 that I'd be watching all this stuff, I'd have told you were so full of shit that your eyes were brown. But here we are. We're living in a time where we get to see all this stuff kind of come to life on the
Hmm.
big screen. It's amazing. So enjoy it. I mean, you don't have to like everything. I certainly don't. I don't love everything that I watch, but just appreciate that it exists sometimes. Just You
Hmm.
know,
Okay,
that's
well,
it.
that's it.
Should we stinger
Watch the
this one?
movie. What are we going to stinger it with?
I don't know. I just stingered. I just pre-stingered our
You
stinger.
know, I think that we should talk about portal fiction. Do you know what portal fiction is?
Like
That's
when
any
someone,
fiction where you go through a door into another world.
yeah.
We need to do a podcast episode on portal fiction.
Oh, we could do some portal fiction. I'm going to need to do some prepping for that because I've read a lot of that.
It's the basis for a lot of stuff, including the Justice League.
Yeah.
People were portaling in and out of that show like crazy.
Yeah. Boom tubes.
Yeah.
They sure were. It sounds dirty though. We're going to do
Boom
a
tubes.
boom tubes and portal. Was it
Portal fiction?
portal fiction?
Not the back portal. Get your mind
Like,
out of the gutter.
well, I'm going to tell you this right now that if you were going for a job interview, like a regular old job interview, and it went great, and they said, "Sir, I just got one more question to ask you. What do you like to do in your spare time?" And you said, "Well, I like to write myself some portal fiction."
Yeah.
I don't think you're getting that job.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind. Okay, well, on that note,
Well, it's been a slice, man. Thanks for doing
it's
this.
been a slice. Okay.
We'll talk next week.
Yeah.
Bye
Bye.
bye.
How will you retrieve your great prize? Anti-life is found, Assad, and we will stop at nothing to possess it. Ready the Armada. We will use the old ways.
No, that was
They made it.
that was the finest naked lady space vampire movie I've ever seen.
Yeah.